You know what time it is! You know what time it is! E-S-E-L-E-S-E-L!
And you know what underdogs is? It's a hungry dog.
And the second stick away, and the Eagles are alive! Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you! Let the celebration begin!
Welcome everyone to episode 48 of Wingin It. I'm Ali, he's Aleks, he's Andrew. I know last week we said we'd record an episode on Friday, but frankly, that was a god-awful game to watch, and we all needed the break on the weekend to basically get over it. So I'll kick it off to Andrew. Andrew, I know this is like your most hated time of the football season. How did you feel watching that game? Did you cry a lot? Did you feel like, the world was basically just like had stopped moving? Let me know.
Despite the injuries, which all happened to the Eagles, and the Browns were just completely unscathed. Other than that, I mean, I think I watched the first few drives. I watched Zach McPherson get a little picked apart on the first drive. I felt like maybe he was getting a little he wasn't getting enough love. He seemed to be in the right spots. He just wasn't able to make the play. Before I just hopped on, actually, I'm still tasting my breakfast. I just got an update from Yahoo that in their most updated Madden 2024 simulation, they have the Cowboys. The Cowboys went 16-1 and won the Super Bowl in a Madden simulation. So everybody, don't buy the newest Madden. It's clearly not based on reality. So anyway, that's where I am. Aleks, you were at the game, man. Talk about your the first time back at the stadium in a while.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was neat. I didn't even realize it, and I knew this is true. But to actually walk back out on the field and see a new banner, and the last game that I was at was the NFC Championship game at home, was really cool to see the banner from all of that. Stadium was cool. I mean, preseason's nice because it's really easy to get in and out, and you're not really fighting a whole lot of traffic. Because you guys know that's the thing I hate the most. And I gotta say, at least where we're sitting, Little Caesars Pizza is now in Lincoln Financial Field, and my dad and I got one, and it's phenomenal. Little Caesars, Little C is underrated.
Pizza.
The pizza they had last year was absolute trash. It was awful. It was super thick, doughy, this gross marinara sauce. But Little Caesars in the club, at least, I'm really excited for that this year. So that's one thing that was really positive.
I've never had Little Caesars before. There's a confession.
Oh man!
So while we're just on the topic, real quick, I'd like to know what each of your favorite fast food pizza is. Do you have a go-to? I know Domino's 555 was kind of in everybody's auto dial for a little bit. I am biased. I worked for I worked for Papa John's for quite a few years, and to this day I enjoy the sweet sauce. And although Pizza Hut buffet when I was a kid was probably the greatest thing ever, but I probably lean Papa John's. What about you two?
So my favorite in the Philly area is Corpley's tomato pie at any cook. I don't know if that's considered fast food, but you can take that out. You can go in and pick it up at any grocery store in the Philadelphia area. That's fast food pizza to me. No,
I still feel like Corpley's is higher end. I know that's going to be good.
So
stuff.
that's a staple. That's if I'm coming to your kid's third birthday party and I'm going to be hot and I'm going to be chasing around my son the whole time, give me some Corpley's. But as far as hot and ready fast food pizza, I'd probably go Domino's just because I don't know what they did, but 10 years ago they did this garlicky crust, and it's so freaking good. It's so much better than Domino's past, so I love it. Little Caesars though is a Bible study or coming out to our house housewarming staple. So I've had a lot of Little C in my life.
Nice.
I'm a huge fan though. I'm a huge fan of it, and I think the one in the link was a deep dish, so it was a little bit of specialty there as well.
I'll get on the wagon. I got nothing but time. I will have myself some Little Caesars one day before I check out.
Dude, I miss the old Pizza Hut personal pan deep dish pizzas you get like at like Costco or one of those big stores. Those things were elite, man. Gosh.
Ali, did you have a go-to ever?
I mean, you can't go wrong with Domino's, right? Like it's
I love Domino's.
quality enough for the price pizza, and then you
Of
get
course.
an elite service with the app. I know where my pizza is constantly. I know where my delivery driver is constantly. And now you can actually deliver. This is not a paid promotion, by the way, from Domino's. Now you can deliver pretty much anywhere, right? Like you can drop a pin and the delivery driver doesn't even need an address. They just use like what pin you dropped.
I'm not kidding. When I started with Papa John's, all we had was this giant poster map of the territory, and I would literally write down the directions on the back of the receipt because, like, I don't even think iPhones. I did get my first iPhone while I was working for Papa John's, and I remember using a GPS and being like, "Oh my God, this is the new world right here." And here we are, 10 years later or whatever, and people can literally track their delivery on an app. So, look. One of the things that have gotten pleasantly better as we've gone on, I will use it as a segue into things that will also hopefully get better as we go on, which is the Eagles. We just watched a lackluster game. Again, it's preseason. This is what you're going to see. Unfortunately, we did get bitten by the injury bug a little bit. Again, these aren't players that are going to be full-fledged starters that are getting hurt, and that's what we want. Aleks, you posed the question before. I want to know both of your opinions here. What is your take on preseason strategy? Because obviously you want players to get reps. You want them to get real-time action, but we saw it, man. It's like nobody's safe. This is still a big boys game. So how do you manage your starters, and how do you find that happy medium of trying to get them experience while also making sure that they go into the season healthy? Ali, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think you go into it with the approach that you're evaluating more than just the people that you've got on the payroll. You're evaluating potential additional talent that you could add that could add depth to your roster. I do think that with that comes you have to put them in position to be as successful as possible, right? We can get into Marcus Mariota and where his sort of like down marks are, but if you're trying to evaluate receivers and you've got Marcus Mariota throwing at them, it may not necessarily be the best indicator of what their true value is. So my perspective is you get your starters in at least a couple of drives in throughout the preseason just so that they can knock the rust off against another NFL team. And then you get them out so that they can reduce chances of injury, right? Because we all know, right? Like when you first start a workout, when you first start a season, the chances of injuries are a little bit more likely because you haven't pushed your body to that level yet. But at the same time, you got to have that nice happy medium of being able to knock the rust off. But as I said, it's an opportunity to evaluate the depth on your roster, but you also have to put them in position to showcase that talent.
Aleks, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a very unpopular opinion, and honestly, I don't even have a lot of logic behind it. So it's like totally cool to like rip it apart. I'm not going to die on this hill. I don't think you don't see the level of talent Tom Brady has, and you saw him come into a game when Drew Bledsoe went down. Do you guys remember that story a few years ago about that Cleveland Browns kicker? This guy was like homeless, and he got a spot to like come and like practice with the team, made like third string and ran back a punt return for a touchdown. He doesn't even play in the league anymore because he's playing against other third rounders, right? Like at the end of the day, your entire stock and your entire everything is based on your first stringers, right? Even Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback we may see in our generation, was practicing with second and third wheelers when he was going behind Drew Bledsoe. But we didn't actually notice how good he was until he was in a game time situation and what he needed to do. So all of that to say, my perspective is I would like to see the starters play a little bit more in preseason. Injuries are part of the game. It would really suck if Jalen Hurts went down in a preseason game, and we can totally blame the coaches and do everything. I don't think he needs to play a full game because it is for nothing, but I think reps are incredibly important. I don't want to see Jalen Hurts' first rep against a Patriots defense be the first rep he's ever seen against someone that's not only on his team and he understands their tendencies and what he needs to do. Of course he's lighting it up at training camp. He knows what the other guys are doing. Of course he's progressing. So I think it's a little bit unpopular, but I'd like to see the starters play like first quarter, first half of the game to get that rust off, build momentum in the early start of the season. If injuries happen, it is what it is. But if it's going to happen preseason, week 2, week 7, NFC championship game, I mean, it's going to happen. That NFC championship injury doesn't matter because he didn't play in preseason or not. But the record to get us to the NFC championship game because he won all those early games is much more important to me. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's, I don't really know what else can be done. It's like they've already removed one game from the preseason. There's only 3 games now as opposed to there being 4 before. I mean, can you shrink that to 2? I don't really know how much goes into the NFL as a business at that point if they find it, worth it to reduce the games. I mean, as a fan, the less, or at least for me personally, the less preseason, the better, because we're all holding our breaths, hoping that, we don't see any injuries on the field or we keep all of our guys safe. But at the same time, we know that we don't want them going in completely cold into the season. So that's why I think, Ali, you even alluded to this maybe, the last episode about how the first 2 weeks of the season, in a sense, do kind of feel like preseason. I mean, when the Eagles played the Lions last year and we had that big first half lead and then we kind of let them off the hook, the Lions come storming back. Who knows if that same type of outcome would have happened later in the season. So with that being said, I do think that preseason obviously is a very good opportunity to take a look at the backup quarterbacks. So we saw another very underwhelming Marcus Mariota performance. It doesn't look like my man can hit much of anything. I know he's got some legs, and that is helpful. And, obviously we have a very good offensive line. So I try not to worry too much. We've seen some really nice things out of Tanner McKee. I think it might be a little bit too premature to have him as QB2 right off the bat, but at least he is showing like he can sling the ball around a little bit. So, Alex, I'll start with you this time around. Mariota, I mean, again, you were there, so you saw it up close and personal. My man does not look good.
Heard the booze even before the season started.
Hopefully all season we never have to see him put the helmet on. I just want to see shots of him on the sideline, never needing to actually enter a game. But of course, there's always the risk of people getting hurt. So here's my take on it. Again, not a very popular take, and I just love Philadelphia sports media. I just love it when our backup quarterback has a bad preseason performance and everyone's talking about bringing Nick Foles back or going to call Joe Flacco. But it is actually kind of true because even Carson Wentz. Oh my God.
Could you imagine could you imagine if Wentz backed up Hurts?
Eagles helmet.
Here's my perspective on it. Marcus Mariota has NFL playtime experience. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He has had a little bit of success. He's played in the playoffs before. I think he's a perfect quarterback too. I think he was throwing very high. He was throwing a little bit reckless, and he just did not have a good game. Loved what I saw from Tanner McKee. Tight windows, made the throws he needed to throw, stood in the pocket, didn't look nervous at all. I love that little last minute, drive down the road with the little play action boot and goes and throws it. That's awesome. And that should, if anything, be really encouraging to everyone that hey, our depth has depth. But this storyline of we're going to cut Marcus Mariota and bring Tanner McKee up and have Nick Foles and Joe Flacco come in to mentor Tanner McKee. I mean, guys, you sound ridiculous. And that's to all sports media. I'm cool with debating and having this philosophical debate on is Tanner QB2 and is Marcus Mariota, but Marcus Mariota is undeniably our backup quarterback. You're crazy. You sound crazy to me if you think anything other than a guy that has proven NFL experience, who's led a team to a playoff before, is not going to be the guy that you have backup. He shouldn't be starting. He should be a backup quarterback. Drew, what do you think about this?
I'm right there with you. I mean, I kind of saying the same, the same type of thing. It's I appreciate that.
Ali is not liking this. I like where this is going to go.
Look, don't get me wrong. What we have witnessed these first 2 preseason games is ugly, but I don't think that is the story of Marcus Mariota. I don't think that I almost would rather see him perform lousy now than kind of, put on this show. And then if he is called upon during the season, all of a sudden he can't he can't hit the broad side of a barn. Is that the saying? I take him for what he is. He's got experience. I think his IQ should be at least adequate for, for somebody as long as he's been in the league. And I think, again, on this team, when you can run that RPO style offense and you have that dual run threat, I don't think he's going to be asked to do a whole lot. So I'm fine with it. I'm trying my best not to really waste too much energy on worrying about Mariota, because I'm hoping we never see him. But Ali, I know you may feel otherwise.
Now that we have a third voice on the podcast, and this is why we have three voices, so we're not just agreeing with each other. Ali, let it rip. Now's your time.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. Totally. No, I'm just kidding. No, I wish I had a notepad taking notes here. Yes, our offense depends heavily on the RPO. Specifically the second word in that acronym, the pass piece. We can all agree that quarterback is arguably one of the, if not the toughest position in all of sports, right? And successful quarterbacks need to have this unshakable confidence that when they throw an interception, when they throw an incomplete pass, when they overthrow a guy by 20 yards, they can come back and make a tight window throw. His body of work so far in the preseason are cause for concern. His body of work so far in training camp, although I have not seen his interceptions that he's thrown in training camp, but his body of work there is a cause for concern for me, especially when we know that Jalen Hurts, over the last 2 seasons that he has been our starting quarterback, the full seasons, he has not completed all 17 games within the season because he's gotten injured by virtue of bad luck, by virtue of the fact that he is a running quarterback, which makes him more susceptible to getting injured. But because of this, we need to take a stronger and a harder look at our backup quarterback position. We didn't do that last year. We saw what happens when we've got Gardner Minshew in there and trying to stir up some of the magic of Minshew mania. But when I've got a guy who's 3-3 at playoff record, former Heisman Trophy winner, former starting quarterback, and he can't make simple throws to receivers who, it's not like these balls are getting dropped. He is overthrowing these guys. He's underthrowing them. He is making some bad throws that I would expect from rookie quarterbacks, and he's not getting any better. This is a concern.
I do remember. I remember, even going into last season, we had the same exact concerns about QB1. We had the same exact concerns about Jalen Hurts and his ability to hit open receivers. And for a while, it looked like he was never going to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying that Mariota is going to all of a sudden put on an Eagles uniform and then step out there during the regular season and we're going to see some sort of improvement, especially when he's at his point in his career where he's probably past the halfway point and we've probably seen as much progress as we're going to see. But at the same time, I still don't want to just judge off of early in the season when I do believe that because of his experience, there is still an ability for him to at least find his footing a little bit and not be as bad as what we're looking at now.
How many years has he had in the league, though, to find his footing? You've got a guy like Carson Wentz, who is having an MVP season, sees another man take his team to the Super Bowl and win. And
I get it, but Nick Foles didn't do anything before that either. And then Nick Foles gets put in. Case Keenum didn't do anything, and he's older in his career. And then all of a sudden, he's taking a team to the NFC Championship. It's like these random ass quarterbacks just kind of show up at weird times in their career. And sometimes it might even just be this is hypothetical, but Hurts, coming out of the game and walking over to Mariota and just talking in his ear and being like, yo, man, you got this. And then Mariota going out there and being like, all right, I'm the guy. And somehow just catches momentum. I know it's far-fetched. I'm not saying
to be fair, Nick Foles is not some backup scrub, right? The guy has NFL records. He's got jerseys that are in Canton for throwing 7 touchdown passes in a game. Sure, he's thrown 27 completions in a row, which ties the NFL record. The guy is a very capable quarterback that could have started in multiple organizations.
And we agree that he played the 2 best games of his entire life in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. And it was very unexpected, and we obviously will love him forever.
And then he came out of the next season, and we were like, okay, Nick, thank you, but we're ready for Carson to come back now. We saw how that went as well.
But yeah,
that's Nick Foles's MO. He's a backup, right? We shouldn't have to expect. I mean, we may need to expect Marcus to play. I think it's a very valid point, but I'd rather have I think the question we should be asking is who would we rather have in a game time situation, Marcus Mariota or Tanner McKee? I'm going to Marcus Mariota 100% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think off the bat you have to, just based off of experience, but I don't think that leash will necessarily be very long if McKee is
agreed.
Yeah,
he goes in and he drops a duck. Right now we're all gonna be calling for Tanner. I'll be first one to say, hey, like I want Tanner in there because we gave Marcus some game time experience and he didn't do well. But I think at this point that's not the call Nick would go with.
Also, just seriously, just hand the ball off. Just hand the ball off as much as possible. Like I still believe our team could just push the pile and just keep moving that way.
With a QB2 versus QB3, you do lose those reps that Marcus Mariota is probably getting with the first team offense. So not having that practice puts Tanner McKee at a disadvantage when it comes to game time. One last point that I'll make. Marcus Mariota, again, very capable quarterback because he started in the NFL. It is, again, final thing that I'll say, it is a cause for concern to see that a capable quarterback, a playoff winning quarterback, is not making these simple throws that he should be making in his sleep, that he was making in college. Something is off with this guy. And I don't know what it is. It could be the fact that it's not a real game and the pressure is not on him. But when it does happen and he is put into that situation, I think you're going to hear all of Philly sports media going back to the preseason, going back to training camp and saying, we all saw it. Why aren't the coaches seeing it? And over the last few seasons, we've had situations like this with Doug Peterson sticking with Carson Wentz throughout the entirety of that season before he was finally forced to start Jalen Hurts. We all see it. We all think it's a cause for concern if this Marcus Mariota starts in an NFL game for us, a regular season game for us. And yet we're still willing to sit back and say, he's a more capable backup. It's okay. It's not a real game. It's still preseason. He's going to knock the rust off. It's going to be fine.
Look, it's backup quarterbacks are not a dime a dozen. Like they're just, it's not easy to have a capable backup where your first string quarterback exits and then all of a sudden you have the same chance of winning with a backup. It doesn't happen. Like teams don't carry two awesome quarterbacks, or at least, you can't afford it, because quarterbacks are expensive. So you honestly, I hope that this is the last that we have to even talk about Marcus Mariota. Like I'm truly praying that we don't even have to worry about this at all. I think it's good because it is a potential fear, and I don't want to see Jalen ever have to leave and worry about this. But at the same time, it is cause for concern. You're not wrong at all. Why don't we dive into the rookies a little bit? I know Nolan Smith showed some things this past week. What else have we? I'm trying to think. Who else obviously Jalen Carter getting a little bit more action. So I know Ali, your boy Sidney Brown also. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit. Aleks, what was your rookie takeaway? What did you what did you see?
Kelly Ringo gave up the absolute worst route that I've ever seen in my entire life. I've watched a lot of games at the link, and I watched Kelly Ringo run step to step with some no-name receiver, and that was a pick or a swat. It didn't even register with me that the guy caught the ball. And then when they showed the replay, he stopped running. So that was really concerning. I do actually have a lot of concerns about the linebacker situation. I know Nakobe Dean had a forced fumble. He hit the ball, but it wasn't just, it was in passing. Come on. It wasn't just this amazing punch out and everything. He kind of just almost ball tapped the guy as he walked by him and the ball happened to come out. It wasn't that impressive, and everyone's I think people just want this overwhelming feeling that our linebackers are going to be okay, so they're trying to hold on to anything. But I don't see a lot of I don't see a lot of promise coming out of our linebacker room. So I think the Nolan Smiths and Jalen Carters, they should be good. They should be good, right? They went that high in the draft. I'm glad that they made pays against some second stringers. Really glad about that. I'm very concerned about our linebacker depth. And I'm really concerned about some of the level of play with their defensive backs with Kelly Ringo that are just giving up gimmies, swatted balls that are basically just the quarterback's like, my receiver might catch it or not. Those are the only two options. And like our dude just stops running. So that's kind of my analysis. It's a little bit bleak if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and now with Miles Jack announcing his retirement, he was here.
He wants to be a carpenter or a plumber. What the heck is that all about?
Hey, doing some manual labor, good for him. That's a good, honest living, and now he has more time to play Call of Duty as well. So good for him. But that does obviously make the linebacker, depth even quieter. So Ali, I know you're big on linebackers. Who was your boy that you were loving in college? Was it Drew Sanders? I think you had your eyes on in the draft. But Nakobe Dean going into really his. I mean, it does kind of feel like a rookie season because he didn't play at all last year. And you got guys like Nicholas Morrow. You have Zach Cunningham, who to me, he was one of the he looked all right. So. It's hard to feel as good as last year with TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. Like they really were rock solid and kind of unexpected. Do you feel any similar level of confidence, Ali? And anything else you'd like to add on the rookies?
No, I'd say the biggest concern of mine heading out of last season was at the linebacker position, and it was at the safety position. I feel great about the safety position, given everything that we've seen from Sidney Brown so far. Dude, honestly, he might make a push for the linebacker position because of how downhill he runs, and he's a pretty hard hitter too. No, so Zach Cunningham, I like what I saw out of him against the Browns. Christian Ellis was getting a lot of praise from the announcers. Granted, it was against like second and third stringers, so like I'm not really sure how to evaluate that piece. Jalen Carter, I'll just make one plug-in for Jalen Carter. There was a video clip that was circling on Twitter. Well, I guess X now. It feels weird to call it X. But it was circling on X where Jalen Carter got pancaked. And everyone's like, oh, everyone's super hyped about this guy. But after looking at the replay of that play, the dude drew the center, the guard, and the tackle. All three of them their attention was on Jalen Carter, while Nolan Smith did a stunt to the inside. And it was absolutely incredible to watch. Like, this guy is going to be a superstar. His strength is just unbelievable. Anyway, back to your question about the linebackers. I am concerned. I'd like to see a little bit more coming out of Zach Cunningham. Nakobe Dean is just not showing me what I expected from a second-year player.
He looks slow, too.
It's just that, again, in my mind, it's one of the most difficult positions on the defense because you're kind of like this hybrid lineman, defensive back player, and you've got to make these split-second decisions, and you've got to hit hard. He just does not – he's not giving me what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think the story is going to change a little bit week one, but like I'm looking at our depth chart here. It's Nakobe Dean starting, Sean Bradley, Zach Cunningham, Christian Ellis, Nick Morrow. Like, these are no names. And if Nakobe Dean is playing like he's playing, like, that's just, sure, you have Slay, you have Bradbury, I mean, you're going to have talent on the field, but that's just going to leave the middle of the field just being open.
Yeah,
I don't know. TJ Edwards and Kaiser White weren't necessarily standouts either, and that team got us to a Super Bowl. And I think we are going to be able to put a lot more pressure on the quarterback where these balls are going to have to come out quicker. So we'll see. I mean, we've never just had like elite, like I can't think of like a super elite linebacker in the last like 10 years we've had.
I feel like TJ Edwards was actually according to like PFF or whatever the official rankings of positions.
You are right about that.
He was ranked as like a top 3 linebacker last year, which was absurd.
You're right about that, actually.
I don't know if maybe there's any. I hope not, just based off of what we saw last year. While when Hassan Reddick, when he was playing on the D line, obviously he was after the quarterback constantly, and when he was put back in, when he played linebacker or dropped in the coverage, not as successful. I'm not sure if that's something that they may try to tinker with. Next question, who's wide receiver 3? Because I know who I want it to be, and I want to know where you guys are with this. I don't think Quez should be our number 3. So you probably know who I want, but I'll let you guys fill in the blank. Who's your number 3 receiver right now?
I gotta say, there was a lot of trust with Zacchaeus out there. Did he end up getting hurt? I think he just went off the field and was like precautionary, right? He actually looked really good. He created a lot of separation. He did drop some balls. He did, right? But he was certainly getting first looks on almost everything. I like Zacchaeus. I'm not entirely sure about how he translates from speed. He's definitely not like a big guy. I mean, who else do we have? You definitely don't want Covey.
Yeah, I mean, then you're looking
you
at
don't want Zacchaeus, Allen,
Greg Ward, and or maybe Joseph Nagata. Is it Nada or Nagata?
Ngata, I think.
Yeah.
Nagata.
Yep.
He's a lot of fun to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's probably going to be Zacchaeus or Quez with that number 3 spot. I want to love Quez, and he's made it a little difficult, but I still think that there obviously is potential there. But I think Zacchaeus was like the second leading receiver last year on the Falcons. I know they weren't a very pass heavy team, but they still had Drake London, who was, I think, the first wide receiver drafted last year. So I have this weird confidence in Zacchaeus as this very, very like low profile, underrated pickup. So
I agree.
I'll be curious to see what happens there.
Ali, what do you think about wide receiver 3?
I think Quez, this is a make it or break it year for him. If he's not able to elevate his game versus last year, obviously we remember the game against the Commanders. We remember the drop in the Super Bowl, right? It's truly a make it or break it year for Quez. I really want him, like you said, Andrew, like I want him to succeed. I want to like him. I want him to succeed, but it's truly going to be up to him. I like what I'm seeing out of Joseph Ngata. That's an epiglottal, push there. Ngata, right? But I also want to see what this kid Devin Allen can do. I mean, he's supposed to be the fastest player in the NFL. So let's see if that speed has hands. I mean, right? Like if the wide receiver 3 isn't the guy who's stretching the field, what is he really doing?
Devin Allen is a practice squad player that's making the roster to try to burn defenses and get people equipped with game time speed. I think that's all he is. I don't think there's actual prospects of him. Now, I base all of this off absolutely nothing. So, that's just me speculating. I think he's just a really fast body that knows how to play out there, but I don't think he's not Tyreek Hill, Ali. I don't think he's going to have the IQ and the ability.
Have we seen him return kicks? Like, to me, it sounds like that would make perfect sense. And also, quick trivia question. Do you remember the skier that the Eagles drafted, I'll say maybe 15 years ago? There was a skier, and he was literally, like, the only thing he did on the Eagles was return kicks. You both look stumped, so I'll save everyone some time. His name was Jeremy Bloom. But I make the same connection with Devin Allen being a former Olympian. I'm just like, just have him return kicks. It's like, what else is he going to do? Just catch the ball and just find a hole and try to run.
No, I think he's just preparing for the speed. I mean, because that's what you have to do nowadays. The game is changing, right? You have like Tyreek Hills and Jalen Waddles, which it's insane that they're on the same team, by the way. You have... Apparently, Daniel Jones is the fastest quarterback on the field, somehow clocking faster than Lamar Jackson. So you need to get some of these practice squad players with elite speed. I think that's where Devin Allen comes in, where he's stretching out the field. I will say I saw him really stretch out the field, and he was wide open when, of course, Marcus was getting hit. But dude is fast. Like he just runs like a sprinter. It's crazy to see him take off. Let's wrap it up in the next like 3 or 4 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, I have I think I've touched on about everything that I have that on my mind. If you guys have any closing arguments or words,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of excited for this Thursday. I won't be going to the game. I actually gave my tickets away. Just busy week this week. But I am excited to see if Anthony Richardson is going to play. Just to see Colts. I don't know if he's actually taken the field yet with the Colts, but they haven't named him as a starter. Kind of interesting just to see a new quarterback QB go out there, see what he's done. I don't know if he's played yet or not. I know some of the other rookie QBs are having a tough time. I heard CJ Stroud is like just not good. Bryce Young is having a difficult time. I've heard it's been like really difficult out there for some of these rookie guys. So I'm excited to see if Anthony Richardson will say. And like, I do want to see Jalen Hurts out there. I don't want to see him get hurt. I know everyone's going to attack me. Like, Alex, you wanted this, right? I want to see him out there. I want to see him make some throws. Let's play against a defense that's not your own. Let's
just some screen passes. Just a screen pass or two. Maybe a slant.
I mean,
get it
last
out
year
of
he
his
got
hand
hit
quick.
late out of bounds. Remember, he got hit late out of bounds last year in preseason. Yeah,
Was that the Jets? I
It
do
was the
remember
Jets.
that though.
It was the
Yeah,
Jets.
it was the
Nick
Jets. Yeah.
Sirianni said WT.
They're saying
expletive.
Aaron Rodgers is going to play this week. Aaron Rodgers hasn't played a preseason game in forever, but like they want him out there and playing. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it, whatever.
Aaron Rodgers, Anthony Richardson, these players make sense. Rodgers is getting acclimated to a brand new team, and Anthony Richardson is a rookie. So like that makes sense for preseason. And in that regard, I can understand why we don't see Hurts because hopefully not much has changed. Personnel is still very similar. Playbook, I'm sure there's still a lot of a lot of the same stuff going on. So hopefully an adjustment like that is not one that needs to be worried about. Ali, any closing words from you before we sign off?
I think it'll be cool to see our boy Shane come back to the link under in a new uniform of the Colts.
Shane
but
Steichen.
no, I think if we can continue as we've been doing over the course of this training camp, this preseason, I want to see a couple of starters get in, just at least a couple of plays, right? Like get these guys throwing a football to each other. I want to see Jalen Hurts in there for a few snaps, if not a whole drive. Granted, right? Like these guys, I get it why you would want to rest them because the last game they played was 6 months ago. Whereas we talk about like the Jets, the last game they played was December, right? So 2 months may seem like not a lot of time, but
it's a good point.
A lot on your body having to play in the playoffs, having to play in the Super Bowl. So I would, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, I would be shocked if Patrick Mahomes plays in that same vein because you want to get these guys as much rest as you can before the season starts to matter. So
if I'm not mistaken, I think I did see Patrick Mahomes play in a preseason game. I'll pass it over. Yeah, go ahead, Ali.
No, I'm just excited to again continue to see how this roster is going to shape up, right? Because at the end of the day, this is when we're going to really start seeing what the 2023-2024 season is going to look like for us. We're going to have to hopefully get a lot more answers at the linebacker position, hopefully get some answers on the safety position. And this is why I like this time of the year. It's because there's so much uncertainty and you kind of start seeing it evolve into what it'll become for the remainder of the season.
Mahomes threw 15 passes last week against the Cardinals and they won 38-10. So if you want to talk about people going out there, I'm just saying though, he threw 10 for 15, 66%, 105 yards and 1 touchdown, 109 rating. So Mahomes is out there playing.
Head coach Jonathan Gannon, it makes sense that, Mahomes would just impose his will on Jonathan Gannon one more time.
Dak Prescott has not taken a snap yet.
Yeah, pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Mahomes beat Gannon with like one healthy ankle in the second. I don't even want to talk about it. There's still too triggering.
I got a pit in my stomach. Please don't.
And yeah, I still already have one working from this ridiculous Dallas Cowboys 16-1 Madden nonsense. So on that note, everyone, thank you for tuning in to Wingin' It. Thank you for winging it with us as always. We will be back later this week, probably Friday, to recap. Thank goodness the final stupid preseason game of the season, and then we can start. We'll talk a little bit about fantasy drafts because we're hitting this is the climax of fantasy drafts. Final week of August, first week of September. So we finally have real football around the corner. For Aleks, for Ali, I'm Andrew. Have a great week, everyone. Go Birds.